Welcome to the BankTalk podcast, the show where we talk to leaders and experts from the community banking sector. Whether you are a current CEO or aspire to be one, this podcast will give you valuable insights and advice on how to run your financial institution better. Each episode explores a new topic with a guest who brings their unique experience and knowledge. Tune in and discover something new each time you listen.
Hello, welcome to another episode of BankTalk. I'm Rich Carty, Sales Executive with Remedy Consulting. Today we have a great conversation planned with a CEO, Peter Stenehjem from First International Bank and Trust. We'll go through a little bit about his background, the bank's focus, and really what's going on today. And hopefully that maybe resonates or you learn something that, you might be able to kind of put into place with you or just, hear what's going on. So with that, we'll get started. And I want to say thank you, Peter, for joining us today and giving some time to Bank Talk.
Well, Rich, thanks for having me on today. It's always fun to talk community banking or just the banking industry in general, and looking forward to a fun conversation today.
Same here. And, we talked a little bit before this. I have some familiarity with the Midwest, and obviously our company does as well. But why don't you give us a little bit more of a background on yourself and maybe the bank history? You're fourth generation, so you guys have quite the history, and maybe kind of, what that family-owned background has shaped your culture today.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. It's always fun to talk about, our deep roots, not only in the Midwest, but also in the banking industry in general. So maybe just by a quick look back. So our family last name Stenehjem, very Norwegian, translates to stone home in Norwegian. But my relatives, fortunately for me, immigrated to the Midwest and ended up out in western North Dakota, a little community called Arnegard, North Dakota, kind of right on that North Dakota-Montana border. 9 brothers, 2 sisters. 2 of the brothers decided this small town needed a bank. And so they pulled together the capital to start what was known then as Farmer State Bank of Arnegard. Just to put in perspective from a dollar amount per aspect, it cost about $15,000 to start a bank back then. Relatively low dollar amount in today's world, but kind of crazy to think about. But started a bank in Western North Dakota, operated, in McKenzie County for, the first kind of 20 years of our history. Got through the Great Depression. Fortunately for us, we were one of 19 banks in McKenzie County. After the bank holiday, we're the only bank to open back up. Never loss of a depositor's dollar, but we were then one of 19 and then one of one essentially in the county. Moved ourselves to Watford City, which was the county seat of McKenzie County in North Dakota, and changed our name to First International Bank and Trust. Little unique that we have the word international in our name, mostly because why we have that name is based on a lot of the egg community at the time was selling certified seed potatoes. So our small town bank was dealing with, international bills of lading, international transactions. So we felt to help our customers, having the word international in our name made sense. And so we changed our name to First International Bank and Trust. Operated as a small town bank in Western North Dakota, up essentially until about the 80s. In the 80s, my dad moved back as the third generation and kind of took helm and started growing our bank. So we started doing acquisitions, organically growing throughout North Dakota. And then in the mid 90s, during the S&L crisis, we doubled in size, picked up 6 offices in some of the larger metros of North Dakota. In the mid 90s, we also branched down into the Phoenix metro. And so we've been in the Arizona market since the mid 90s, continued our organic growth throughout our footprint. And so fast forward to today, it took us about 100 years to get to the first $1 billion in total assets. We hit $1 billion in 2010. And now today we're a little over 30 locations operating in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, as well as Arizona. And we're about $5.5 billion in total assets today on the bank side. And then we have a couple of unique aspects to us, traditional, call it regional classified bank, but community bank, relationship driven, couple niches with mineral and land services, with our fintech called CodaPay. We do a lot of enterprise retirement solutions. So happy to talk about some of the unique niches that we also plan, but for the most part, business egg bank with some great treasury management capabilities. So hopefully I didn't get too long-winded, but again, 115-year-old bank, but looking forward to being a privately held and family-owned bank, hopefully going into the future. And as you mentioned, I'm a fourth generation. I took over as CEO from my father, just this past year in January. So we went through a family transition, and I'm now guiding our family-owned organization now and hopefully a long time into the future.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have quite the history. Great, Peter. Let's talk about a little bit about the transition that you just kind of, focus on your bank for a second here before we move on. Family businesses are not always the easiest to run because I'm sure there's some behind the scenes complications and discussions, but maybe talk a little bit about that transition. You're taking over maybe at a little bit of a younger age than some other people might have in other roles, and maybe talk about, some of the challenges you had and maybe some things that you have taken, within that process that might be able to give some advice to others, dealing with the family dynamic.
Sure. As you can imagine, being a family owned business, we have a natural kinship for any other family owned business out there, especially bank families that are throughout the country. Yeah, our family is very methodical when it came to a transition. So my dad held the president CEO title for roughly 35 years. And then we went through about a 3-year exercise leading up to, I guess, our recent transition. We actually hired a third party to help our family that specializes in family transitions, family succession planning, estate planning, some of those type of aspects. And so, that was very helpful for us just because we're a little unique to our size in the banking community, about 5.5 billion, but also how tightly held we are. So our ownership group is just my mom and dad, and then I have 3 siblings. And so my dad transitioned to chairman. My mom is still active at the bank. I worked very closely with my brother Eric, who is in our Phoenix market, and he serves as our chief transformation officer, focuses on a lot of strategic type aspects for the bank. And then I have 2 sisters, Kira and Kristen. Kira is active with the bank, and then my sister Kristen is a medical doctor in Chicago. But we did a lot of family discussions around what do we want to be now and also into the future, and what makes sense to guide our organization both from a strategic perspective as well as a family aspect. And essentially, through that family process, it was decided that I should take the helm as CEO. Very honored to carry on that family tradition. But those family owned businesses that are out there can relate to this. Your Thanksgiving and your Christmas meals have a tendency to have some work talk. I started working for the bank in June of 2000, so I'm a little over 25 years in. Throughout that period, I also went to college and graduate school of banking and have been working full time since January 1 of 2008. So I came into banking during the most recent recession that happened and kind of got about 3 or 4 years of workout credits, problem credits, jammed 10 years of banking experience in about a 3-year period, which I think at the time I didn't necessarily appreciate, but I think it's been very valuable in today's world, having to deal with a lot of crucial conversations early on in my career. But I'll say having a third party helped us navigate some of the conversations, but ultimately at the end of the day, we really felt as a family we wanted to continue to be privately held, family-owned institution for hopefully the next 115 years, and how can we continue to set our organization up to that effect. And yeah, it was a great transition. Still really fun to work with my whole family on a daily basis. Unfortunately for me, my dad's still our chairman, so he can help answer questions. And my brother Eric and I have a great relationship and talk a lot of strategy and where we're going to maybe make some investments from an organization perspective. But overall, it's been a great transition, and I appreciate all the support from the industry and our team members, especially because that's what's made it a lot easier to transpire.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that the holiday dinners won't be too contentious with at least bank talk compared to something else.
No, exactly. I mean, that's kind of as a family, we had a rule. We'd much rather have get-togethers where we all get along versus not. And so I think that was kind of just a general principle that we agreed on really early on.
Out of curiosity, are you the oldest of the siblings? Like back in the day, the first in line would then become king. Does it happen to fall like that, or is that not
So
the way it runs?
that is accurate. I am the oldest, and as I mentioned, I started working at the bank pretty early in life, and kind of came up through the ranks and worked in essentially every department within the bank, including our accounting finance area, and then took on more of the business development type roles. But yes, I am the oldest, so I think there's lots of studies out there where you have to naturally be the protector of your siblings and some of those various aspects that the firstborns kind of take on. But you are accurate, and I am the oldest. So
Well, I'm the first of three. Myself, so I totally understand the responsibility and we always had it harder than the youngest, is what I always say. So
You gotta blaze the trail, right? So it's
there
like
you
you
go.
gotta worry your parents a little bit and blaze some trails and set some example, probably good and bad, but hey, we're still standing today anyway.
Absolutely. Well, let's focus a little bit more on FIBT's role. You guys have a focus on mineral and land services. Maybe talk a little bit about the work that the bank's doing in that space.
Yeah, we're a little unique just because of our roots in Western North Dakota. Kind of Watford City, a town I grew up in, dead center of the Bakken oil boom. Granted, this is about the third oil economic cycle that we've seen throughout the last 50 years. But when I was growing up, Watford City was a town of about 2,500 people. Now Watford has over 2,000 kids just in the school district. And so with our roots in Western North Dakota, and as I mentioned, our family homesteaded in Western North Dakota. Fortunately for us, we have some land and minerals in the family, and so we were navigating our family assets and our minerals. And I always felt that oil companies, when they're negotiating surface damages or easements or mineral rights, we didn't always feel that they're looking out for the owner. And so we started coming up with some of our own documentation. We're working with our own set of attorneys. And as our friends and family started finding out about this, we kind of figured out, hey, maybe this is a service we could start charging for. And so fast forward today, we have oil and gas attorneys on staff. And then there was a company called Mineral Tracker that started competing with us that combined a technology platform that tracked where wells were drilled, what direction, the ownership of those wells, what the daily output was, anomaly detection. They started competing against us. We didn't really like that. And so we went out there. We're pretty entrepreneurial by nature. So we acquired that company and we combined our oil and gas, more contractual oil and gas aspects with a mineral tech platform. And so we, probably one of the only banks in the country that actually have oil and gas attorneys and petroleum engineers on staff. But we manage a lot of minerals throughout the Midwest and actually throughout the country. So we do reserves-based lending, help negotiate easements, surface damages, manage people's minerals located near and far. And so we even help the state of North Dakota evaluate their minerals, and they help build their budget off of that. And so we do have, deep expertise in both the mineral and land services, both supporting families as well as businesses and foundations and municipalities. So kind of a deep understanding of the oil and gas industry anyway.
Yeah. And that's a type of industry that can be fairly volatile. And bankers don't like volatility. We all know that. Obviously, have some people on staff that seem to have, some years under their belt. How do you guys monitor or mitigate the risk on that side?
Yeah, I mean, oil and gas, I mean, you're tied with a volatile industry that has cycles. The cycles can vary between regulation or administration changes out west. I think our role as partners and just kind of taking our bank knowledge, we want to be a stable and a disciplined partner, whether it's a stable sector or a volatile sector. So I think we still have pretty conservative principles, but just want to help guide our clients and create solutions or help with solutions that come up on a daily basis. But yeah, I think you just have to be consistent and know the industries that you're in and recognize the fact that it's going to have some ebbs and flows, but be there both during the good and also the dips in the industry. But it's something that we've seen over a long period of years. And I think having industry experts, they're used to that and know how to navigate that relatively
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. You say consistent. Do you think that's something monthly you're looking up and down, yearly? What's kind of I guess, how would you view that?
Yeah, so I mean, with our technology, the Mineral Tracker, I mean, we're tracking oil prices and all kinds of aspects, frankly, on a daily basis. So we have all kinds of decline curves and industry trends. And with the Bakken specifically, I think about 86% of the wells flow through our department in some form or fashion. We actually track all 100%. And so we
Okay.
have a pretty good gauge on what's happening within those various fields on a pretty real-time basis, which probably gives us a little bit of a unique aspect with a line of sight into things. But I
Yeah.
think it comes down to being consistent, but more so it comes down to relationships and expertise. And I think we have a team that's very, very knowledgeable, which helps.
Yeah. Day to day, we're approaching the end of the summer here in terms of timeline, but with today's administration, are you seeing an uptick in this area, or what are you seeing today, I guess?
Yeah, and if you look at like the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum is originally from North Dakota, so obviously knows the Midwest very, very well. I think depending on what administration is in the White House, you kind of have various sentiments. Right now with the Trump administration, they're very pro energy and very pro-American energy. So what you're seeing is probably a little bit easier permitting process. You're seeing more investment probably taking place domestically. Hopefully there's an opportunity to drill on federal lands because most oil and gas aspects are coming from privately held lands, and they're some of the largest landowners in the country are municipalities or states or the federal government. And so maybe you're going to see more access for private companies to go drill those areas. On the flip side, when you see a different administration, for example, the Obama or the Biden administration, you had a way harder time with permitting aspects. But what you also saw was way higher oil and gas prices. So you see higher prices. So, that there's kind of a trade-off. To me, it seems like lower prices is better for the consumer, better for the overall economy, and also seeing how that affects everybody on a daily basis. So it's just, again, an ebb and flow that you see depending on who's in the White House.
I appreciate that. Well, Peter, as a technology consulting group, you had mentioned CodaPay, and I know you're also working with Cavenue Banking as a Service and as a platform as well. Maybe talk a little bit about those and that side of the business.
We'll be right back.
Is your technology spend getting a little out of hand? Are you worried about making those big strategic moves because of those hefty vendor contracts? Or maybe you just feel like your technology is currently holding you back. In today's banking world, overspending on technology is a risk you just can't take. Going up against those major vendors on your own can be tough, expensive, and especially when the contracts are designed to benefit them. That's where Remedy can come in. Remedy Consulting helps our clients stay competitive and grow their business with the right technology, products, and their spending strategies. Not a Remedy client yet? Head on over to remedyconsult.net for a free review of your tech stack, spending, and contract terms. Even if you're not the perfect fit, you'll walk away with expert advice and confidence in your technology decisions. Check us out at remedyconsult.net or give us a call at 262-955-7776. Thanks for tuning in, and now let's get back to the episode.
No, appreciate that. So CodaPay is our fintech. We actually acquired this company in 2018. So it's a third-party payment processor. We deal in credit, debit, and ACH transactions. And this is where we kind of talk about FIBT punches above our weight class. So CodaPay last year moved $103 billion, and we did that with roughly 60 million transactions. So as you can imagine, proprietary software, those are some big numbers. So we're a top 40 payment processor in the country. That includes your big box banks, stuff like that. We're a white label company, so we're built into a lot of people's software platforms. And so CodaPay has been around for 30 years, essentially as a banking as a service, and has been around for a long, long time. And because we have such a great base in CodaPay and what it does a lot of payroll processing. So they have about 107,000 clients located in all 50 states. And with the CodaPay base, it then allowed us the opportunity to launch our version of banking as a service, which we're kind of calling banking as a service 2.0, and we branded it Cavenue. And so we recently launched our first platform client within our Cavenue system. So a company called Raisin. Raisin is a nationally and internationally known company, kind of a high yield savings account marketplace for getting high yielding CDs. And we're the transaction bank. So we do both the push and the pull of money, and then also warehouse it. So because we have such a great base in CodaPay, and we know that banking as a service it's a challenge out there for a lot of banks to build this. Plus, the regulators are harsh on it. So we invested really early and heavily in compliance, in risk expertise, making sure that we control the general ledger and we're doing things our way. So we've been very, very methodical with how we move this kind of money on a daily basis, who we partner from a Cavenue perspective within that embedded financial services or those ecosystems. And so we're trying to think beyond the traditional bank model with FIBT, and we're seeing it being a great growth driver for the bank and probably the future of our community bank within the payment space itself.
Yeah. That's great. No, that's powerful. I mean, that's that's a lot of movement and a lot of cash to be moved. So
Yeah, it made our bank investment crew keeps them on their toes a little bit because we can have some pretty big swings in a given day. So, like as I mentioned, we're about a $5.5 billion bank, but we can swing, 800 to $1 billion if it's a certain payroll cycle happening. So it's made our corporate investment, our CFO area, have to pay close attention. That's for sure.
do you see that number like strategizing for the future, like next 5, 10 years? You've grown 5 times in the last 15 in terms of your asset side, but in terms of this platform, do you see that number increasing and how are you going to kind of aim to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope so. I mean, obviously we focus on controlled growth and we want to be a high performance institution. So I care more as an organization about being high performing, having good credit quality, having good margins, good return on equity, good return on assets. So first and foremost, we care about being a high performance organization. It seems like with that focus, growth has been a little bit of a byproduct. So, I mean, we've obviously benefited from having some strong geographics and strong economies that's benefited us on the bank side. On the Codapay side, yeah, I mean, we've doubled in size within a 5-year period on that side as well, just with the proprietary software and some of the capabilities we have in place. I would hope that we would continue on that growth trajectory, and it's given us a nice earnings lift. It's also given us access to deposits, which, as you know, in the current industry or environment we've been in the past couple of years, banks are pretty hungry for liquidity. So it's been a great avenue for us to continue to lend money out to a lot of our great customers. And it's given us a nice diversity from a revenue perspective, but we've had to focus making sure on the compliance and risk side that we're doing things the right way. But I think hopefully that growth will continue. I'll knock on wood for that anyway.
I would hope so. I wish you luck there, obviously. And you mentioned being a high performing bank. Where do you turn to most? I think when we talk to bankers, there's certain events and they have their inner bank circles. Do you still go back and talk to people from the bank graduate school? Where are you finding you're getting the best maybe resources and conversations these days? Because I think for our listeners, people are always looking to find the secret sauce that's going to help them maybe become a high performing banker. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, my brother and I both share a belief that networks are powerful, and so we, fortunately, about a decade ago, got associated with a group called Stand Together and Stand Together Ventures, and that's been a great, peer group outside of the banking industry, just more entrepreneurial, private equity, venture capital, manufacturing type, privately held type businesses. So I think that's been really fun to get to talk about more of the employment type aspect. Or essentially, we're in the talent business. You got to hire great people, retain them, rent talent as long as humanly possible and hope that they retire with you. And so I think that's been very helpful for us, just how we think about mutual benefit and how are we creating long-term value for our clients and how are we focusing on what we want to be as an overall organization. But yeah, I mean, we're members of ICBA, so National Bank affiliation. We attend a lot of conferences.
Yep.
We send a lot of our employees to Bank Director or other conferences that are out there. Money 2020, obviously with CodaPay. And so we try to have a lot of our executive team and our teams staying close to what's happening within the industry, getting out there and meeting peer to peer or being parts of peer conversations. At the end of the day, I'm a community banker at heart. I want to continue to see our community banking industry do well. And obviously, with the M&A activity and what it takes to keep up with technology, with regulation, you've seen with the number of banks in the country and what's happened. And it's kind of forced all of us to have to get larger in order to compete. But I want to continue to see our industry be successful. So anytime, I can be a resource for any bank or other industries out there, I'm happy to do so. But again, we just try to have a lot of conversations, stay up with various podcasts or be in person or be industry experts when the opportunity arises. But no, it's unique, but banking is one of those industry that's been around a long time and the push and the pull of money or having the warehousing of people's precious assets such as their money, it seems like that industry I think has an opportunity to be around for a long time, but we have plenty of disruptors that are trying to get into our space too, whether it's on the fintech side or tech companies like Apple or Google and those kind of things. I think we have to carve out being probably relationship driven, but also have some core niches. And we're doing that with a few of the things I mentioned already with Mineral Land Services and CodaPay, but
Yep.
I'm sure there's lots of other banks out there that are doing unique things as well.
Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on to share the story of FIBT. I hope people enjoyed what you had to say because I certainly did. That was majority of the questions I had. I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to share on your side, and if not, I do appreciate the time, Peter.
No, as I mentioned, I mean, we love being a privately held, family-owned bank. I hope that I get to pass this to the fifth generation at some point, and I think as long as we continue to stick with our culture, our roots, and I think with our industry focusing on being, relationship driven and having that community presence, I think banks out there need to be authentic as to who they are, and I hope that everyone out there continues to, be successful and kind of find their way anyway.
Yeah. Well, again, Peter, thanks so much for joining us and sharing the Stenehjem background and history, and obviously where FIBT is going and where you are today. It was great to talk with you.
No, Rich, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to talk about banking and our industries, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you appreciated and enjoyed this episode of Bank Talk. Until next time, keep on learning, keep on listening, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Bank Talk podcast brought to you by Remedy Consulting. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please rate, review, and share our work with others. To stay up to date with future episodes, be sure to follow the show and turn on notifications. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.